In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Today is the fourth Sunday of the second month of the Coptic year, fourth Sunday of the month of Baba. And during this month, we hear different passages of the Gospel according and talking to us, teaching us about who Christ is. First week was, this is just a review, Christ is the healer. He healed the paralytic man. In the second week, we hear about how he has grace and he is willing to bestow it on us, and the miracle of catching the fish with Simon Peter. And last week, we hear him have control over the bad spirits, and how he is a spiritual healer also, not just to heal our bodies, but also he also has power to heal our spirits. And then today, Christ has authority over death. He is the Prince of Life. As a general theme of the whole month, this is what the church put in front of us. Who is Christ? What does he do for us? Today, the passage talks about him raising a dead man from the death, bringing him back to life. When I read this miracle, I wanted to know what's before and what's after in the gospel. So I'd like to always, when I read something in the Bible, I like to know it in the context. I don't like to take one story and not knowing the background of it. This story happens right after, or this miracle happens right after Christ healed the slave of the centurion. Centurion is a Roman leader who was good to the Jews, and he had a slave who was sick, or about to die, and the Jews came to Christ and they interceded on behalf of this centurion, or this man, this leader, Roman leader, and asked him, he has been helping our nation, he has been good to us, please go and help and heal his slave or his servant. And it's interesting, they know that Christ is not supposed to do that because this man is not Jews, right? So they're not supposed to deal and to go to his house. This will defile Christ. But they thought of him as just a regular man, an ordinary person. What's surprising about the story is the Roman centurion sent him saying, do not tire yourself, do not bother, just say a word. Just say a word and my servant will be okay. Because I'm a man under authorities and I have authority myself as a leader. I say to this servant, go, and the servant come, and they listen. So I believe you also have authority. I just want you to say a word. And Christ commended this centurion faith. He said, I haven't seen this much faith in whole Israel. And the servant was healed from that moment. Now, after this, Christ goes to the village of Nain, or the town of Nain. And when he entered, there was a funeral procession going by. It was a large crowd. And interestingly enough, when I was reading the background about this, they say in rabbinic teachings, if you see rabbinic teachings is like the priests of the Jews, right? The rabbis and whatnot. So they teach them, if you see a small procession of a funeral, leave the Torah and leave studying the Torah and go participate in the funeral procession so you can supply sufficient number of mourners. It's very considerate of them. But this is what they can do. That's the best they can do. It's just to walk in the funeral so they can volumize the number of people. They can increase the number of mourners behind this person. But this guy, he had a large crowd walking behind him. Maybe for many different reasons. Maybe because he was an only son to a widow. Tough situation. We don't know exactly why. Maybe he was a loved person. But the Bible tells us that, or St. Luke tells us, that it was a large crowd. When Christ saw this and saw the woman crying and weeping, he got close and he did a few things that didn't make sense to anyone. First, he touched the coffin. Basically, he's telling the whole procession to stop. And by him doing that, according to Moses' law, if you are in the same tent and with people, and someone dies in that tent, you are unclean till the end of the day. If you get in touch with a dead person, you're unclean to the end of the day, or defiled to the end of the day. What's defiled mean? Defiled does not mean sinful. No, defiled means you're not ready to get close to the holies of the Lord. You cannot enter the temple. That's what unclean means. You have to clean yourself, follow certain rituals until you're clean, and then you can enter the temple of the Lord. So you can be holy, or you can be a saintly person, but in the meantime, according to the laws of Moses, you're still unclean, right? Because you have no control. If someone dies in the same tent as you are, it just defiles you, right? It makes you unclean. But here, this was not the case. Christ intentionally went to the procession and he touched the coffin. By doing this, everyone think like, why would you do that? You see, now you have to be, we will label you as unclean to the rest of the day, and then you have to go through a certain purification process. But they didn't see that Christ will not be defiled by a dead body. He is a source of purity. And when the source of purity get close with anything, it purifies it. He touched the coffin, telling them to stop the procession, and then he did what seems to be useless. He talked to a dead man. He talked to a dead man. This doesn't seem to make sense to anyone. It does not make sense. Why would you talk to a dead man? He cannot hear you. If you talk to a sleeping person, they will not hear you neither. How much more of a dead man? They cannot hear you. Why would you talk to them? But that's why I mentioned the story earlier. The word that the centurion said, he asked him, just say a word. He talked to the dead guy, the dead kid, and told him, rise. Right? The same word that he sent, it's just all what he needs to do is just say a word. We don't know in what situations, what circumstances God can talk. But we know when he talks, everything listens and do according to his word. What captured my attention in this story is Christ could have looked the other way. See the walking procession, the funeral procession, and he could have just simply continued his way, but he did not. He looked at the mother and he saw how bad the situation is for her. You know, when we say a widow was only one son and that son dies, that puts her in a very dangerous spot in the society. First, she's going to get poor. Why? Because people, to start with, they're not rich. They have one provider for their house, either the husband or the son, who works and just earns some money, and by this money they live. Now she lost her only supplier, financial supplier. She's going to get poor. That's the first hurt. Or if we look at the emotional hurt, it's tough. So she lost her only provider. And the second thing, people will look her, at the beginning they will just show sympathy. Maybe if they can go another step, they can show empathy with her and they can cry with her. But then they will ask this question. This guy died because he committed the sin. And people will start to judge him. And they will start to judge her too. And it's shame that she has to live with the rest of her life. Why would she look at this way? Why would people look at her this way? It's just the culture back then. Because if you don't have any kids, you ashamed because Christ will not be the mother or the father of Christ, right? Remember that from the Old Testament? You have to have offspring. Now you have a kid, and then this kid dies. So that's even more shame to her because of the social background and the cultural background of the society. She was in deep pain, deep pain. She was hopeless and lonely. She was hopeless and lonely. Her husband died, her son died, and now she doesn't know what to do. And when the case is that bad, Christ will have to intervene. He has to, because He is responsible for us. And this is what we tend to forget. We are His children. He has to intervene. He has to do something. And the first story, the honored people of the Jews and the leaders of the Jews came to Christ interceding for the Roman leader to heal his servant, right? But for this lady, nobody asked for her. We don't know why. We don't know. Maybe they thought she is not important. So what? A lot of people die every day, so it's no big deal. That's why nobody asked Christ. Or maybe because they thought that He cannot do anything. The guy is dead. If he was sick, maybe you could have asked Him to go and heal him, but now he's dead. That's why when you read the miracle in the context, it makes more sense. He has authority over disease, and He has authority even over death. Christ is the Prince of life, King of life, the provider of life, the source of it. He calls the man, the dead man, and He asks him to rise, and He gave him to his mother. Just imagine her, compare between her feelings before, when the son was dead, and after, when her son rise from the death. It's interesting. As much as the trouble is too strong and too dark, as much as it will be bright afterward. I heard this somewhere, this quote somewhere, but I don't know where, but it really made sense to me. They say everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay at the end. If it's not okay, then it's not the end. Make sense? This is for those who have hope in God. This is for those who have hope in God. Remember, if everything is not okay, then this is not the end. Everything will be okay in the end. Christ didn't look the other way. He didn't sympathize with her. He didn't show empathy with her. He went to the second and the third and the 10th mile, and He offered His help. This is what we miss in our life sometimes. We see someone in need, and all what we do is just, maybe if we're good people, we show sympathy. Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you're going through so much trouble. But this is it. Maybe if we are more, if we have more feelings, we might feel sad for them. That's what's called empathy. Sympathy is just to be there and to tayyib khatru and to say, I'm sorry and whatnot. But empathy is to feel the same feelings that they're going through. But Christ here, He took it to a much more loving level, a giving level. He helped. Now, how do we apply this in our life? When we see someone in need, it's good to talk to them, it's good to feel for them, but it's much, much better to show the intention to help them. The intention to help. If you can help, then don't just say, "Wana mali." No, we need to. It's not like, it's not my business. If you can help someone, please do. Today, Christ helped this widow who was hopeless, who was lonely, who was depressed, and raised her son. We can do something similar. A lot of us go through different troubles all the time. It doesn't matter if you're new to this country, if you've been here for a long time, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Different difficult times for different people. All what we need to do is, if we know that someone is going through a difficult time, at least show the intention to help. We have seen this in many situations in our church, where someone has a serious illness, and all of a sudden I see random people getting involved in helping this person. I myself was surprised. A lot of people got to help this deceased person. They knew it was a dead end for him, but they showed interest and they stepped in and they helped as much as they could. This is what Christianity teaches us to do. Don't just show sympathy. That's not enough. That's not enough. You need to step in and do something if you can. God will do things, will do miracles. He just needs us to do our part first. When we do our parts, we will hear his promise, come to me, O you blessed of my Father. Come to me, O you those who bless my Father, because with our action we glorify God in our life. May God give us the proper life in Him, not just any life, the proper one, the giving life, the life that's full of love, compassion, and sacrifice. To Him is glory forever and ever. Amen.